What's going on, Cancer? I salute the divinity in you, and welcome to the Chariot Friends. Justin here, and are you pumped up? It's the full moon. Well, the full moon's coming up in like a day. Well, a couple days, but it's fine. But it is an exciting time. You know, this is when the moon is getting at her bright, or is at her brightest. And I like that this is happening in Taurus too, because after Cancer, this is a sign where the moon's exalted in. So this is where she is her most celebrated in. We love a good moon in Taurus. So this is a great time too to just kind of see. This is a great grounding moon as well, to see how you've been managing these emotions that have been coming up while the moon was since the moon's been in, since the sun has been in Scorpio. And yeah, just see how we feeling about these things and where do we want to go moving forward. So we'll talk about that definitely more here in a moment. But again, if you're new here, my name is Justin. Welcome, and know that when you're coming across this video, you're in sync with the moon, and she loves that. But there's also a place for you if you happen to have Cancer in your placements. Sun, moon, rising, maybe Venus, wherever. This one's for you. And I do tarot cards, friends, based on that lovely moon. Oh, yeah, based on that lovely moon. And I'll talk about what sign she's in, what phase she's in, which is going for. Of course, it's all them lunar shenanigans. And just so you're all aware, this is a general reading, not a one-to-one. So take what fits into your story, discard the rest, and everything will be dope, Cancer. Now, let's jump into it, because this is, I got a lot to talk about with today. And before we get into that, I'm going to shuffle your deck here while I'm getting into this. But depending on when you're watching this, happy Mercury Day. Mercury is associated with... Ooh, we're getting two cards today. How exciting. Thanks, Spirit. But Mercury is associated with Wednesdays. And I feel Mercury is the planet of like communication, could be a planet of learning, practical knowledge. And so this could be a great time for getting out there, maybe scheduling a meeting during Mercury days, or just getting out and hanging out with some friends, maybe giving a friend a call or a family member some calls, something like that. Maybe you want to have a speech that you want to give, maybe scheduled during Mercury day, or maybe even like a Mercury hour, whether this is like a presentation, things along those lines. See what Mercury's doing up in the sky though. Mercury in Sag right now. Be careful about, or be mindful about, does the speech come across a little hot while Mercury's in Sag. But which Mercury is going to be in Sag for a little bit here, considering that this is where they're going to go or that's where they're going to go retrograde. But yeah, and I also like to take these days to think about what's your relationship with your Mercury placement. How's Mercury sitting in your chart? What signs it's in? What house is it in? And how is Mercury? What aspects of Mercury is forming with other planets? Those could be just some things to build a deeper relationship with your chart as a whole there. The sun, moon, and rising, of course, are important, but we want to work with the whole of the chart there. So just some things to think about there. But let's get into the lunar shenanigans. Because on the 13th of November, the moon is going to be entering into Taurus pretty late Pacific time, at least at about 10:59 p.m. and that's good. I just said Pacific time. And with the moon in Taurus, like I said before, this is where the moon finds her exaltation in, so she works very well in Taurus. Taurus is they're ruled by the lovely Venus one, but their modality is fixed. And so there is where I find fixed signs may be slow to start something. Once they get it going, it's full steam ahead. You know, and it can be hard to change the path. I'm working with a lot of fixed energy in my chart. So it can be one where they have a lot of staying power, the fixed signs. That's Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. But Taurus their element is the earth sign, and the earth energy works very well in the physical realm. And that includes working with the body as well. You know, it's a tangible thing. But yes, the earth element I find works very well as far as like building things, crafting things, accumulating resources, things along those lines. And then you get into their modality, which is feminine, where there's a receptivity in the sign. And so I feel like all the other earth signs, Virgo and Capricorn, Taurus is one that is, I feel like they're really great planners. And when they're able to get the idea, it's like, okay, This is where I want to focus. This is how I see this thing going. When they put their energy into that, they can really build stuff of long lasting beauty. They have the perseverance to see this, whatever their thing is, through till the end. And that's why I feel the moon does very well there, because the moon is about nourishing and nurturing things. And that sometimes takes long-term care, especially when we're talking about just the body, for example. This thing requires constant maintenance. And so you're going to, like a good moon in Taurus can really just, whatever it's putting its energy towards is going to thrive and just prosper. So yeah, so I really like this energy. Now let's get into this full moon energy, and I have a whole chart for you here, so I'm going to go ahead and switch over. But the moon is going to be, we're going to get into the full moon on Venus Day, which how appropriate, the 15th of November, and that's going to happen at exactly 1:28 p.m., and that's when the sun here and the moon are directly opposite one another. So they're forming an opposition here. This is when the moon is furthest away from the sun. And this is happening at 24 degrees of Taurus, and the sun, of course, the sun's in Scorpio. So you want to see too, if you have any planets or points that are around these signs, that this is going to be working with you more intimately. This is actually happening within a degree of my Mars placement, so that's actually really fascinating. Actually, yeah, this is a pretty active one. There's a lot of stuff going on there that be the points activating in my chart personally. Gotta take a look at that. But when we're talking about an opposition, I like to think of the oppositions as Saturnian in nature. And it's usually, though, where there's something that is opposing you. You had this view, and now you're seeing the results of that. The things have manifested. This is where the moon, again, is at her brightest. So whatever insights that you've come across now, we have like a complete view of what this is looking like and how this may be going to affect you going forward. But also oppositions, too, can bring about, I don't want to say challenges from other people, but you may notice where you can have these internal ideas. There are going to be external things that are going to essentially oppose that. You may want to become a doctor, but what are your circumstances looking like? Maybe you need to look maybe you have a bunch of money and you can just invest in that, or maybe you need to get some grants or some loans and things, or, so it's like that internal versus external, so that's what I like to think about when we're working with oppositions, as far as, okay, this is what I've wanted to manifest. These are the results. And how do I feel about that? What am I going to do going forward with this energy here? And I feel like when it happens between two fixed signs, Taurus and Scorpio, Taurus and Scorpio, there could be this potentiality for maybe something didn't work out the way you wanted to, and then instead of pivoting, we still try to force this thing as opposed to making some adjustments. So it's not to say that you abandon your dream or your intention, but this is a time to be realistic. It's just like, okay, maybe this thing isn't going to happen within like just the lunar cycle. Maybe I need to extend this out over a longer period of time, working with the moon in like 2.5-year cycle, something along those lines. So maybe I need to adjust my short-term goals a little bit and move some of the stuff into like longer-term goals. So just kind of playing around with some things. Maybe a relationship you thought was going to come through, maybe didn't come through, or vice versa. Maybe this is going way better than you thought it would. And it's just like, oh, maybe I need to add a little bit more onto my plate. Really get this thing moving. So just pay attention to that. Now, another thing that I wanted to talk about here is like right around the same time, it's still forming, but Mercury and Jupiter are actually getting ready to form an opposition as well. Mercury's coming up on Jupiter here shortly. And so what I can see this kind of happening as is where we want to make shifts in things. Again, I don't think this is necessarily something where you want to abandon something, because shortly after the moon will be applying to Mars here, it'll be a sextile, but I wonder if we end up making a move, if it's out of frustration here. So one thing I would say just to be aware of during this energy, I think that's all I want to talk about. There's something to switch over. But one thing I just want to say to be kind of aware of during this full moon time is, again, just like maybe it's just a time of just like adjusting what our expectations. It's just like, all right, And when again, whatever that means, if it's on a like, oh, this didn't go how I thought it was, it's like, okay, maybe I just need to move around some things, make some different plans and things, but still keep the dream in mind. I just maybe need to, yeah, maybe there's something else that I need to learn into this, or learn, or something along those lines. I'm just speaking very generally when I'm talking about this. And this is something too, if you want to see how these, because it's easier when you actually have a chart to work with when you're talking about these things. But if you want to work with these energies more personally and see how these transits are coming up for you, down in the description box below are links for some services that I provide, so definitely check that out. But you want to just see too where this, what house are these oppositions, and since we have multiple happening, are falling in your chart. For example, if you're like me, this is a Leo rising, this is going to be happening between your house of your home and your house of your career. That 10th house space is where that moon's going to be. So there may be some things that have come up. Maybe you're struggling between like what your expectation, how do you balance that home life or what you see during the end basis how other people are perceiving you, your rank, the things that you want to accomplish. So that's just one example of how that could come across there, how you could work with those energies. So again, just something to keep in mind of there. I will say for my stuff, being that it's falling in, this new moon happened in my home space, I've been thinking about my environment and just what that means. You know, about whether I'm going to move or not, that's a whole other story. But that is something that I am thinking about as far as just like what would that kind of dream space look like, and how is that going to affect the career choices that I make going forward. So that's just, again, just very general way of working with this moon. So I think that's all I got for you there. So I'm going to adjust this and switch over here. Oh, but one more thing. Actually, I'm going to switch back over. I wanted to talk about the Sabian symbol for this moon as well, because I really like this, because this moon, where the Sabian symbols happen for the moon, I'm thinking about incorporating the sun there too as well. I'm still kind of flirting with that, but this is happening at phase 26 of Taurus, and this is a Spanish gallant serenades his beloved. In the keynote, this is very romantic. It had a flashback when I thought about that. But the keynote for this one is the ritualization of individual desires. And so I like that it's talking about, like, this gallant is serenading its dreams, it's their dreams, their beloved, the thing that they care about most. And I feel like it's even in despite of oppositions, where there may be things that are getting in the way. You may have said something that Mercury and Sag was like, I'm going to be here in about 2 months or in about a couple of weeks, and people were just like, oh, okay, sure. You know, it's not saying that abandoning those things. It's just like keep ritualizing that desire. It's like, okay, my goal is to still have this, maybe this perfect, this where I'm feeling great in my body, or this perfect home, or this perfect relationship, or whatever this is. Keeping that desire, and it's just keeping the practice. Like, okay, I need to address this ritual a little bit, considering maybe time constraints or whatever this is. Maybe you have children that you need to think about as well, how you're working this thing and then balancing that stuff at home. So whatever this thing is, I feel like it's not losing the love for this stuff just because you happen to reach some bumps in the road. Because where I was saying how I like to think of the oppositions as Saturnian in nature, Saturn brings about limits and restrictions and boundaries, but that's just be like, it's not necessarily that he's denying you. It's just like, hey, you're not ready for this yet. Or hey, there are some other things in order to cross this boundary. There are certain things that you have to do in order to get there. So Saturn is that Saturnian energy is ultimately there to be very practical, and Saturn's going to be stationing direct here soon, shortly after this. I have to see exactly what time. It actually might be before the full moon, but it's going to be happening on the 15th when Saturn, actually I could just pop over here real quick. Yeah, about 6:20, so it's going to be before the full moon happens. But it may bring about some feelings, but that doesn't mean that it's going to be, just don't try not to let it get to where it defeats you. So that's just some things that I wanted to talk about there as well with that Sabian symbol. Let's go ahead and switch back over here. And then, yeah, I mentioned the services down in the description box below. So last little things here, these readings that I do, they're not gender-specific readings. So apply these energies to people as they make sense for your situations. And then before we jump into this thing, I'm going to ring this bell here to bring in some good vibes. So adjust your volume if you need to. But let's go ahead and do that and get into this thing. All right, let's see what your general energy is. Oh, we got a few cards here. Okay. Interesting. Oh, and I like this. So you have the first card here, which is the first quarter moon in Scorpio, which is release your blocks. Oh, interesting. You have the last quarter moon in Aries, which is a work through your feelings. And then this new moon in Libra card, which is know you are loved. And I kind of like how these all kind of flow together very nicely. Because, you know, if you have come up with any blocks, let's say this full moon, this is like, you know, the moon's again at her fullest, and you've seen where things have maybe some hindrances, maybe a situation didn't quite work out how you thought it was. It's not necessarily giving up, but it's just like sometimes things happen in life, you know, and I feel like these delays, these things, it's redirection is the denials are protection and redirection or something along those lines is what I'm getting here. And this last quarter moon in Aries card here is releasing the blocks, working through your feelings. Like, yes, this was frustrating. Yes, you may feel sad about this, whatever this is. You know, we never like to hit those bumps in the road. But I feel that this know you're loved. This is knowing, like, this is, I feel, universe's message saying that, or spirit, or however you connect with that source energy, knowing that this is ultimately happening for your best good. It may not make sense right now, but it will in hindsight. And I know how that can be when we're in the moment of it, but it is, hindsight is 2020. And what I think with this release your blocks card is that these delays came up in order for you to see some blockages here, see some things that you wouldn't have saw before. Like it was better that the delay happened now, because if you were to commit to something and really commit wholly to it, it may have gone potentially more not great than you had even or ever could have anticipated here. And so this was just like, almost feels like a tough love, maybe. And maybe that's how it's perceived at first. Again, I feel like things will make sense after this kind of blows over. Then you've had a time to work through these emotions here. But in this work through your emotions, I really feel like there's a connection here with Saturn going direct. And I talk about this more on my other channel, Alchemist State, so definitely check that out in the description box below. But I really think that since Saturn had went retrograde back in, I want to say it was like the 29th of June till about now. This period of time, the things that have come up here, I feel like now Saturn is just like, okay, now it's kind of like business as usual with Saturn. It's just like not necessarily just bringing about the delays and things, but it's just like, you've had some time to kind of reflect over this stuff. You know, Saturn was kind of easing up, going back, kind of seeing where things, just kind of reflecting on your decisions up until now. And now we have to, I even think like when we talk about Saturn, even though he's known as the greater malefic, Saturn takes his time when he's going through different houses. And that may not feel great when you're going through it, but in the long, like I'll give you an example. Saturn's going through my 8th house right now, and that's not a great house. It's the house of death, inheritances, shared resources, and I've definitely had to get debts in order, which we're doing great. Actually, things are going very well there. and thinking about how I share my resources, not just even my money, but just how I share my energy in my relationship. That's been a really big one for me as far as giving too much and trying to find that balance. And so, we had a passing that just happened not too long ago, and so there's even been thinking about those that sort of thing, like what am I leaving behind? What is I, there's just been a lot that's been thinking, but I've not felt like it's been something where Saturn's just beaten up on me. And granted, I got a day chart, so Saturn is not the worst planet in my chart. Mars is what's been stirring up some trouble. This is fine. But I do think that even when it seems like the planets are even like maybe stirring up trouble, where you may be going through a tough transit, a tough time, however you work with these energies, that you are loved in this. And it's just releasing these blockages that are, because I like that you have this first quarter and this last quarter here. You started up something, it didn't go quite how you went to. Let's start fresh with this new moon in Libra. Let's just come with a fresh perspective here. Come with a balanced approach with that moon in Libra. But let's get some tarot on this and kind of clarify these energies. Thank you, Spirit. There's Saturn. You heard us talking about him. Only good things. So you got the World card here, which is Saturn and Earth energy. You have the Strength card, which is Leo, the Page of Cups, and the Four of Wands here. Now, the Page of Cups is, I feel like, a very sensitive card. It's very imaginative, very intuitive, but maybe even a little naive at times. Can maybe have these really grand ideas and grand things that he wants to bring to completion here with the Four of Wands. Maybe not necessarily celebrated prematurely, but just thought that it was just going to be all smooth sailing and that things were just going to come easy. But when in the face of challenges, then maybe has a harder time summoning up that strength, that internal will. Then it's just like it feels like he's needing to call upon. This is like the first stage before he graduates to the King of Pentacles. But he has to go through each of the cups. The Page becomes the Knight, becomes the Queen, becomes the King. And I feel this Strength card here is that inner journey that happens that as you're getting to completion. And maybe even this is like celebrating the fact with this Four of Wands to the world, celebrating the fact that you did start up something, that you had the tenacity to get things done. But with that, the world representing that kind of that Earth energy as well, not just that Saturn. I'm thinking about the Earth cards in the major arcana, the Hierophant, the Hermit, and the Devil, which is Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn. It makes me think about, it almost kind of reminds me of like, even like when we kind of go through the school process, we get this structure, and then when we're released on our own, you're kind of out in the wild. It's just like, did they set you up for success to face the world? And then we get to the Devil, where it's like, do we succumb to the defeat or do we rise above these things? And I think even if you find yourself, I feel, even kind of succumbing to that sort of, we get into some blockages here while we're working through our feelings. That I'm almost getting like a needing to like maybe affirm yourself, maybe working through, maybe talking about this with someone to help you process or maybe even release these blocks too. But keep the finish line in sight with the World card being here. Let's get a little bit more on this. Oh, there's Virgo. Okay. going on here? Ha! There's the sun. Love it. So and there's a king. So you have, let me tell you what's going on. So you have the sun card, which is the sun, shocker. The king of wands, the 8 of wands, and then the hermit card here. And so with the hermit, I really feel like this is a time to, especially if you find yourself kind of working through this thing, this isn't how you thought this would go. This is a time to kind of sit still and to analyze what's going on here. The sun card is, it's brightening things up, but I almost feel like this is more of a, something has been revealed in a sense. And I like that the sun's here with Leo, because the sun rules over Leo. But I find when we harness that inner strength, keep that will, that it's like the sun is trying to make sense of something. Like it's, because it almost feels a little harsh. The sun, you know, well, sometimes we're not always happy to see the sun. Sometimes it may have been, maybe the sun's been out for like weeks and it's been like hella hot. And I may need to get a little bit more with this sun card here. Let me get a little bit more on that before I get and go more into this. Because the sun here is feeling like it's bringing some sort of lesson here, some sort of understanding that, again, it may felt harsh in the moment, but when we really reflect on that, the sun was, yeah, that's very interesting. Let me get a little bit more with that sun. Oh, okay. How fascinating. Okay, we're doing all of them. Okay, so the sun is clarified by the sun, the 9 of Cups, the Page of Pentacles, and the Knight of Swords upright. And then you have the 7 of Wands in reverse. And it seems like this 7 of Wands is a need to keep up your boundaries, in a sense, to not let this defeat, this perceived defeat at this moment diminish the fact that, hey, at least you tried something, and that's what really matters here. You were channeling this energy, this King of Wands, and you were trying to make your inner light shine with the Hermit here. You weren't just trying to keep something internal, and let that keep, you know, maybe it's just like a time to just like, okay, I received this information, so it's valuable information. Now how do I move forward with this plan? It's like this, the Page of Pentacles, when we sit into this, we can get new inspiration and new focus with the Knight of Swords there, and move faster than we expected it to. But I was, you know, it's interesting what I was saying about the sun, where even though the sun is a very, you know, the happiest card, the sun here has this very stern face, almost kind of somber, I don't want to say somber, but just very kind of maybe stoic, maybe the word I'm looking for here. And sometimes the insights, especially I feel with the sun being in Scorpio, the sun's insights may not have felt the best. They may have even been a little intense, but it's trying to burn away something here, especially like double sun energy. That I feel like I really feel like that this was spirit really kind of looking out for you, and whatever this is, and depending on how this situation is translated, again, it may not seem like it in the moment if this is something you feel negative is going on, but there are, this is Mercury and Sagittarius, but there are different, there seems like there are messages that are coming through here, and it's like not getting lost in all of the, because it almost feels like maybe we've been kind of blinded by the blocks. But when we know that this thing has happened for our best interest, because it's not like the wish hasn't been granted. It's just like, maybe it's just like, is this really how I, or is this really the way that I want this wish to come about, or is there another way for things to go here? You know, it doesn't seem like this is a time. Go in. I got a little energy like lick your wounds with that. Just thinking about how lions and cats will do that. But even when a person gets like a little cut, first thing you do kind of put it in our mouth and kind of like, and so it's like take that time to be with yourself. But with the double sun energy, this is not a meant time to just stay in hermit mode. The King of Wands, you got a lot of heat behind that hermit, and so it's just like, okay, let this be. Just let this be the blessing that it needs to be. Because I'm even getting a message too, where the sun is domicile in Leo, which means that's where it's at home. Saturn is in his detriment in Leo because that's furthest away from his home sign of Aquarius. And it's like we may have started off with that, again, thinking that something wasn't meant to be or it wasn't, but the sun, double sun, turns that around for sure and almost like not negates what happened, but improves what happened. It's like really was a blessing in disguise. Let's get some advice from Venus. There's Jupiter and Gemini. A lot of opposing energies here, but I love that clarity. Let me get the rest of your cards. Thank you, Spirit. All right, so you got the Queen of Swords, the Eight of Swords, and then the Ten of Cups here. I'm with it. Let's switch back over. Because the Ten of Cups is your dream come true. This is your happy home, your happy family. This is the thing, because what I'm even getting here, it's not like you get to this place where you get your, how do I want to put that? This Ten of Cups is like there's this energy of like always working towards something. That this dream is like once you achieve one milestone with the Four of Wands here, then there's this energy of wanting more for yourself. Like, oh, okay, I can achieve this thing. How can I further expand on this? And this Eight of Swords here is, it's like releasing your limitations. It's seeing things as Queen of Swords. It's seeing things clearly, seeing above the clouds where it's just like, oh, this, I just wanted this for myself, but man, I didn't realize it could go here. And then it's like, what happens if I take it further and take it further and just continue doing that till this journey's done? But if you're feeling trapped with this Eight of Swords, I'm just getting an energy of like inviting a different perspective in with Jupiter, that Jupiter in Gemini, that Mercury in Sagittarius energies, because those two are in mutual reception. And so it's like an unusual energy is what I'm kind of getting here. It's like keeping the energy it's like working with the restrictions. Even it's like it's odd what I'm getting here. It's like working with the restrictions, but let me finish this. Let me see if I can get this done. I think I'm gonna clarify this Eight of Swords. Like working within the boundaries. If anything, let the boundaries or the limitations be, turn it into, instead of like a prison, let it become a playground in a sense. It's like it's almost like it's providing the dream of focus, because you can, you could want like a big family, but you may not have the house for the big family. So it's like, okay, first let me get a space enough to house all of these like children. Just this is just an example, but let me get some clarifier on that Eight of Swords. Thanks, Spirit. Oh, interesting. And I like that. So the Eight of Swords is clarified by the Nine of Swords in reverse. Then you have the Temperance card and the Eight of Cups upright. In that Nine of Swords, I feel like it's getting out of that nightmarish space, that anxiety space, that defeated space, and tempering that with something different. There's that sun, one of those suns rising up in the horizon here on this mountain, but this Eight of Cups is giving me this letting go of something, letting go of how a situation may have gone down for you. Yeah, and just not letting it, yeah, not feeling defeated, that know that this thing is part of the journey, that things are, you're just gonna find a different way of working this energy here. I almost feel like you're getting ready to, instead of this looking like the water's flowing down, you're getting ready to make the water flow up in a sense. All right, but I think that's all I got for you there. Very interesting reading. But if you like that, or if anything resonated with you, give it a thumbs up. Excuse me. And share this if you know someone who gets a nugget of wisdom from this. And then subscribe to your strength card. Hit that bell button to get notified when I release videos each day. And then last little bit, like I was saying, definitely check out my link for Alchemist 8 down in the description box below, where I talk about the planetary news, the weekly planetary news, and yeah, all that housekeeping. It's down in the description box below. But let me get your surprise card or cards here so I can get you out of here. You know, and another example that I was kind of getting is with that Ten of Cups. You know, maybe a dream kind of fell apart, and I feel like it's not, and I feel like it's something happened the way that it needed to, because it just, that's how it needed to go. Oh, interesting. Let me talk about your spice card. You have the Raven Spirit here, which is the card of truth, and I think that understanding the truth of a situation is like you needed to go through a thing to understand this, whatever this experience may be, for something else to, and it's like why it's happening will make sense later. How you can turn something from tragedy into triumph is what I'm getting. That's very interesting. Finding beauty in the darkness. You know, like, because where there's light, there's darkness here. You know, they balance each other out, this first quarter, last quarter moon, and just like where the new moon, we may be in this dark state right now, that we will get to where things will be lit up again, and things will make sense. All right, but yeah, that's all I got for you there. So until next time, keep raising that consciousness and keep eyes on that moon. And I will catch you. I'm going to catch you on the next one. Yeah? Yeah. Venus Day.